Hello, I'm Craig Brailsford, and welcome to another episode of Small Stocks, Big Money. For those of you new to the show, RedChip is an investor relations, media, and research firm focused on emerging growth companies. Our unique platform combines global multimedia with traditional investor relations, reaching investors around the world. Now, today's show features interviews with the executives of two public companies. First up, Nova Minerals Limited, a gold, antimony, and critical minerals exploration and development company focused on advancing the Estelle project, composing 513 square kilometers or about 198 square miles of mining claims on state of Alaska land, which contains multiple mining complexes across a 35-kilometer or 20-mile long mineralized corridor of over 20 advanced gold and antimony prospects, which includes two already defined multi-million ounce resources and several drill-ready antimony prospects with massive outcropping stibnite vein systems observed at the surface. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Up next is Soligenix Inc, a late-stage biopharma company focused on developing and commercializing products to treat rare diseases where there is an unmet medical need. Its main business, Specialized Biotherapeutics, develops Hybrite, synthetic hypericin, for cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, or CTCL. A phase 3 study for Hybrite is complete, and a confirmatory replication study is expected to begin by the end of 2024. We'll learn more when we speak with the CEO later in the show. Now, before we get to the first interview, our quote of the week. It comes from the book, Small Stocks, Big Money. Do your homework. Understand companies you invest in forwards and backwards. This quote comes from Charles Diker of Diker Management, and it is featured in Chapter 8 of Small Stocks, Big Money, a book of exclusive interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon today for just $18. Now, let's get started with our first interview today with Nova Minerals. Hello, today we have Christopher Gertuysen, Executive Director and CEO of Nova Minerals Limited, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker NVA. Chris, welcome to the show.
Nice to be with you, Craig.
Now, Chris, for viewers who may not be familiar with Nova Minerals, can you give us a brief overview of the company and its primary focus in the gold and critical minerals space?
Nova Minerals, we have the Estelle project here in Alaska, large project in terms of the land area, 200 square miles. We've been focused on the gold, and we've been very successful in that realm, almost 10 million ounces to date globally, and internal to that, economic resources of in-pit at $2,000 gold price of over 5 million ounces. But in addition to that, we've also had very exciting discoveries now of a lot of these critical elements, and the main one there is antimony. And so that's really another opportunity that we're pursuing here in Alaska at the Estelle project.
Now, as you mentioned, Chris, that flagship project, the Estelle Gold Project in Alaska, spanning a massive nearly 200 square miles. Can you tell us more about the significance of this project and tell us why is Alaska's Tintina Gold Belt such a promising location for gold exploration?
Indeed, the Tintina Gold Province is one of the most prolific belts in recent decades for gold discoveries and gold production, over 200 million ounces now documented here in the belt. This is the land of the intrusive related gold system. This is the land where we've all heard of it, the Alaskan gold rush. Now we're starting to realize where all that gold came from. And so the Estelle project just sits on the southern end of that belt. And we've been called, it's a trend, it's a gold trend, and we've actually been called the Carlin of the North. If your viewers are familiar with the Carlin trend in Nevada, you know, this made companies like Newmont and Barrick. And what we're onto here at Estelle is certainly very similar in terms of scale and potential resource endowment. And we've already seen that. So 10 million plus ounce deposits, not uncommon in our neighborhood. And that's certainly what we're onto at Estelle. That almost 10 million ounces that we've defined to date is across two deposits, Corbell up north, which is a bulk tonnage, very large system. And then down south on the property, RPM, which has really become the jewel in the crown, very high grade system there. And the company intends to focus. The beauty of the project is that it has great optionality in terms of how we attack this, how we develop it. So certainly the project ultimately is a large scale project that the major companies are after, not many of these left in the world. But in this current environment, we also have the opportunity just to go after RPM first, was our current strategy, lower capex, high margin, smaller operation, and then grow ourselves into the much larger project with that cash flow on our own or potentially a strategic partner, and we're certainly on their radar.
Now, you mentioned the RPM deposit. I've got a question about one of the more exciting developments there. It's that potential for a scalable operation at RPM. Elaborate on that. How's it going to bring early cash flow to the company, Chris? And what does it mean for long-term expansion plans?
Well, if you look at the larger project, we are currently doing a feasibility study. And with gold prices at record highs, we expect very positive economic numbers from that. The problem for a smaller company like ourselves right now is that the capex is around $400 million. And so that might be a bit more than we can chew at this stage going it alone. So that's what I was saying, is that we have the optionality just to start smaller and go after RPM. And it's a much lower capex, you know, orders of magnitude lower than that 400 million capex. And with that, we can definitely handle that type of a construction finance or, you know, bridging finance and construction finance to get there. And the margins are very high. We've currently been drilling, and we're coming up with a resource update before the end of the year. And what we're looking at is our target there is 500,000 ounces at 2 grams per ton. And internal to that, a much higher gram core zone of about 150 to 200,000 ounces at 5 grams per ton. Grade and a deposit of that tenor is very, very high margin. And so we're looking at, you know, hundreds of millions of dollars of revenue, of free cash flow for the company over those initial years. And with that type of revenue, we can grow ourselves in that much larger project. Now, those are the two deposits we have. With the project, we have 20 other known prospects at various stages of advancement. And we continue to advance those with our exploration programs and make new discoveries. Over the years, we'll be continuing to drill those, adding to our resource inventory. And so all that presents future upside for the project as we move forward, both in terms of the gold. And as I mentioned, we also have, you know, in some of these prospects, significant copper, percents of copper, hundreds of thousands of grams per ton silver at some of these prospects, antimony, and some of these other critical elements. And so that all presents future upside. We can start small and grow ourselves into the much larger project, which is our current strategy.
Chris, it just sounds amazing. Earlier in your interview, you mentioned antimony. I want to go to that now. Antimony emerging as a key part of your focus, particularly with the Stibium and Styx prospects. Many of our viewers may not be familiar with antimony, Chris. Can you explain what that is, why it's important, and how Nova Minerals discoveries position your company to benefit from the growing demand for this critical mineral?
Certainly. We're a gold company, and we found gold at these prospects, Stibium and Styx, and you might say the antimony found us. And so I'm not sure if your viewers are familiar, but antimony is one of the most strategic and critical elements known to man that most people don't pay attention to or even know about. It's used in all the clean tech, green tech, defense tech, and the key one there is it's used in all the munitions. We produce no antimony in the United States, totally import reliant on China and Russia, who have captured the market. And believe it or not, for our munitions, we import antimony. China has just announced that they are curtailing all antimony imports. This has drawn major concern and interest from the Department of Defense to establish and fully secure U.S. supply chains for antimony, and they see our project playing a large part in that, and we're pursuing that opportunity in the form of grants, these grant opportunities to get into production as soon as possible.
Now, in light of those restrictions, Chris, how are you planning to fast track that Stibium prospect to production?
The great thing about what we've discovered here is it's right on the surface. So we observe massive stibnite being the primary ore mineral for antimony, right on the surface. And so being also the project on state land, so no federal land or native corporation land, the permitting is much more streamlined. The scale of an antimony operation also is much smaller scale than the gold operations. And in these separate prospects, it's separate from the gold deposit. So we can take this on its own path, standalone, much smaller scale, very high margin. Again, very lucrative right now. Record high prices for antimony currently at $25,000 a ton. And it's very accessible right on the surface. And so we're working with the DoD to get grant funding to do exactly that.
Looking ahead, Chris, what are some key milestones investors should be watching for in the coming months as Nova continues to advance?
We've just completed our last round of drilling at RPM. News flow coming in the coming weeks here with all the drill results, and then a resource update before the end of the year. And so I already mentioned the target, 500,000 ounces at 2 grams per ton, very high margin material. Then also concurrently, we have a lot of these technical studies. We're laser focused on delivering a feasibility study to the market by next year, in 2025. That's a key milestone in this business. That opens up all kinds of additional funding opportunities. In the interim, there's also this antimony opportunity that I mentioned, where we're looking for DoD grants to commence production on that within the next 18 months.
Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot here. Is that okay?
Go for it.
All right, now what's the essential value proposition? Sum up for us. Why should investors take an interest in Nova Minerals right now?
There's no bull market like a gold bull market. Perhaps, maybe the antimony bull market currently happening might be even better than that. But currently, if you look at Nova Minerals, it's an exciting time. We just listed on the NASDAQ. If you look at our North American peers with similar assets listed on the North American exchanges, these companies are running 3, 4, over 10 times, some of them, our current market valuation. And so that we believe coming onto the NASDAQ, once people appreciate our story, the scale, the opportunity with the gold and the antimony, once people appreciate that story, it's an opportunity for a re-rate for Nova Minerals. Currently, Nova Minerals market cap sitting around $25–30 million. And this is going into a gold and antimony bull market, big opportunity for the investors to get in early.
It's the Alaska Gold Rush and maybe Antimony Rush for 2024. Great meeting you, Chris.
Pleasure.
Now, to get more information on Nova Minerals, visit nvainfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free, and you can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RED-CHIP to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. We also have a free weekly newsletter you can subscribe to at redchip.com, featuring emerging growth companies just like Nova Minerals. Now let's move on to our next interview today with Soligenix Incorporated. Hi, today we have Chris Shaber, CEO of Soligenix, trading on the NASDAQ under the ticker SNGX. Chris, welcome back.
Thanks, Craig. Thank you for having me.
Chris, start please by giving our viewers a brief overview of Soligenix. And I want to know the key areas of rare diseases and unmet medical needs you're addressing.
Of course. So Soligenix is a late clinical stage biopharmaceutical company focused on developing and commercializing products to treat rare diseases and unmet medical needs. I think what makes our company unique is that we have a 2-segment business. We have a specialized biotherapeutic segment focused in small molecules and oncology and inflammation, and a separate public health solutions business segment that's been funded entirely by the U.S. government to date, in excess of $60 million of non-dilutive funding. And that funding's allowed us to advance predominantly heat-stable vaccines for emerging infectious disease and bioterrorist threats.
Explain for us, Chris, Soligenix's business model. How does the company plan to generate revenue from its specialized biotherapeutics and also from its public health solutions segments?
So as you would imagine, with the specialized biotherapeutics in the small molecule space, we are focused on commercializing there. There are a number of areas like cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, which I'm sure we'll be speaking about shortly, which is highly specialized, small commercial unit to really move that forward effectively in the United States. So there we focus on potentially building that ourselves, but also remain opportunistic with the potential for partnership. And we're very active on that front and in a number of discussions, which could ultimately lend itself to a commercial partner in some of these areas as well. For the public health solution side, as you would imagine, you have one customer being governments, U.S. or world government. So pretty direct commercialization pattern there, as you would imagine. So here, what we'll do is the main goal is procurement contract and stockpiling. However, we also have the opportunity for receiving what's known as priority review vouchers. Those not familiar with these vouchers, if you're fortunate enough to get your heat stable vaccine in a certain emerging infectious disease or biothreat over the finish line with the FDA and approved, they award you these vouchers, and these vouchers are transferable. So you could sell one to a big pharma company with a blockbuster looking to accelerate their regulatory review. These vouchers sell for quite a bit of money. The last voucher sold for about $100 million. So in our pipeline, especially in the public health, we have the potential for up to 3 of these priority review vouchers. So that's a nice added feature of value creation with our business.
Chris, it is amazing how many facets Soligenix really has, as you have just so capably explained. Now let's turn to Highbright. You have announced positive phase 3 results for Highbright in, of course, cutaneous T-cell lymphoma. Tell us more about that therapy and its significance for your business strategy.
So Highbright is our lead asset for the treatment of early stage cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, or CTCL. For those not familiar with the disease, it's a rare form of non-Hodgkin lymphoma affecting about 30,000 people in the U.S., a little bit more in Europe. It's a chronic and incurable cancer of the skin, which patients develop patches, plaques, its most severe form, tumors or lesions. So, very severe in its as you progress. Highbright's a topical therapy. You apply the cancerous lesions, you activate it with safe, visible fluorescent LED light to shrink those lesions. It's not a cure, so we look to manage the disease with the goal of keeping it in its early stages, which is very important. As you noted, we did have a positive phase 3 study, and we are now moving towards a second phase 3. We also had some recent ancillary or supportive studies that have come out that have also been very compelling, have continued to build on that positive momentum of the phase 3. So that work will continue. However, we are initiating a second confirmatory phase 3 study to replicate our prior results across those studies. That study is set to begin before the end of this year, with top-line results in 2026. I will note, however, that we will be providing enrollment updates in 2025. So I hope to be able to move up some of that guidance, and we can get to data a little bit sooner there. Following successful completion, our goal is to file marketing applications worldwide for approval.
Very exciting, Chris. We wish you all the best on that confirmatory study. Earlier, you talked about government a little bit. I want you to delve into that a little bit more. I want to know really more about your leveraging those collaborations that you have with the government, as well as biotech and academia, to advance this great public health pipeline, and of course, in particular, your vaccine programs.
Well, just be clear, Craig, we're active across our entire pipeline, looking at all strategic options. That not only includes public health, but the specialized biotherapeutics and Highbright. As you would imagine, given the later stage of our pipeline, we are currently in a number of discussions of the potential to range from regional partnership of a particular program to merger and acquisition. Obviously, there could be no promises on the successful outcome of these discussions. Time will tell, but again, we remain active. As it relates specifically to the public health and heat-stable vaccine programs, your initial question, we've been fortunate enough to have received in excess of $60 million of non-dilutive government funding to date for this business segment, and are continually pursuing additional grants and contracts to fund and advance these programs, which takes time. As we move development in lockstep with that funding, it's a critical component of our public health solutions business model. It also helps that we have good vaccines that demonstrate up to 100% protection. So we're hopeful that there is more non-dilutive government funding in our future to help fuel those programs forward.
Chris, investors have many choices out there, as we all know. What sets Soligenix apart from those other biopharmaceutical companies that are also focusing on rare diseases and unmet medical needs in the areas of oncology and inflammation?
Now, first and foremost, we have a lead product candidate in Hybrid that has never failed a clinical trial. The entire program to date has been positive, and we have a clear understanding of how this drug works and are highly confident in the upcoming confirmatory phase 3 trial as we're looking to replicate prior results. It also helps that this therapy is topical with a very direct response. You would treat the skin, you see the lesion shrink. We are also taking the active ingredient in Hybrid with similar light activation and treating psoriasis, a much larger indication, and have demonstrated positive results there in a phase 2A study, and we'll expect top-line results there in the first half of 2025. And last but not least, we have another molecule called dusquatide, a new chemical entity, which modulates the body's innate immune system to fight disease. The biologic activity of this product candidate has also been demonstrated in clinical trials. And here we have a small phase 2A study set to begin a little bit later this year with top-line results in early 2025. So a number of data readouts coming and a lot of clinical activity.
Now, Chris, our final question, the essential value proposition. There's a lot of companies out there, as you just said. Why should investors take an interest in Soligenix right now?
There are a number of potential reasons investors should be excited about Soligenix. We have a more de-risked late-stage clinical pipeline than most companies our size and market cap, with a lead asset in Hybrid moving towards a confirmatory phase 3 replication study in a rare chronic disease. We have multiple phase 2 clinical trials behind the phase 3 study, with assets that previously demonstrated their biologic activity in clinical setting. We have multiple value drivers and milestones over the next 6 to 12 months and beyond that we anticipate will continue to build value and momentum. We have the potential for continued non-dilutive government funding and/or partnership as we remain very active on these fronts, looking at all strategic options. And we have an experienced and dedicated management team, board, medical advisors, and clinical investigators with a track record for successfully advancing drug therapies.
Soligenix has a really great story, Chris. Thank you for telling it to us today.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Now, to get more information on Soligenix Incorporated, visit SNGXinfo.com. You'll see research reports, fact sheets, presentations, and the latest videos. It's all free, and you can even subscribe to email alerts to stay on top of the latest news. You can also call 1-800-RedChip to speak to a specialist if you have any questions. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small-cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. And also go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, visit redchip.com and subscribe today. In addition to our newsletter, you can order Small Stocks, Big Money. This is a book written by RedChip's CEO, featuring interviews with some of the biggest players in the microcap space. Get a digital copy on Amazon for $18. Now, let's recap the companies featured today. First, you met Nova Minerals, NVA, on the NASDAQ. Nova Minerals Limited is a gold, antimony, and critical minerals exploration and development company focused on advancing the Estelle project, composed of 513 square kilometers, or about 198 square miles, of state of Alaska mining claims, which contains multiple mining complexes across a 35-kilometer or 20-mile long mineralized corridor of over 20 advanced gold and antimony prospects, including 2 already defined multi-million ounce resources and several drill-ready antimony prospects with massive outcropping stibnite vein systems observed at the surface. Learn more at www.nvainfo.com. Then you met Soligenix Incorporated, stock symbol SNGX on the NASDAQ. Soligenix Incorporated is a late-stage biopharma company focused on developing and commercializing products to treat rare diseases where there is an unmet medical need. Its main business, Specialized Biotherapeutics, develops Hybrid, synthetic hypericin, for cutaneous T-cell lymphoma, or CTCL. A phase 3 study for Highbright is complete, and a confirmatory replication study is expected to begin by the end of 2024. Learn more at www.sngxinfo.com. Now, don't forget to check out our stocks page. It's the biggest small-cap stock portal in the industry. Every company listed on the NASDAQ or New York Stock Exchange with market caps of $2 billion and less. And it's categorized by industries. Watch this show again and explore hundreds of small-cap stock videos on RedChip's YouTube channel. And be sure to sign up for our weekly newsletter and learn about a lot of small-cap companies. Also, go to our website and sign up on our events page for the webinar series. We have webinars every week, several a week, in which we feature small public companies, mostly client companies, and you'll hear straight from the CEO, and you'll be able to ask questions after that. Again, if you have any questions about any of our public companies featured on today's show, call us at 1-800-REDCHIP or email us at info@redchip.com. In closing, remember, while small caps can provide significant gains, you must be prepared for the downside. Small cap stocks are among the most volatile of asset classes. Some of the companies featured on this show are RedChip client companies, and we may own stock in these companies, so please always read our disclosures at redchip.com. Thank you for being with us today. We'll see you next week with some new, exciting, emerging growth companies.